All right, we're live. Everyone, thanks for your patience there. I apologize. I had technical issues on my side, so I will own that entirely. The mute button was pressed on the microphone, and we were scrambling. I was just want to raise Alan's blood pressure a little bit
Yeah.
as we get ready for these things.
Don't make an
All
old guy.
right.
Don't make an old guy get nervous on technology.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining today. Appreciate your patience there as we're getting things going with Allan Klassen. Allan and I have known each other for must be 5 or 6 years, through a whole bunch of different layers of friendships and relationships from the building community. In addition to some of the charity work that you've done here in Calgary with the Gordie Howe Classic, Gordie Howe
Cares. Yeah.
Gordie Howe Cares, and a lot of the other work that Allan's been done. Big personality in the building community, and obviously with some great stories to share. So one of the things that is special about the conversation with Allan is Allan's transition from his previous role in operations and customer experience in the home world, and now in the executive coaching side of things. We're thrilled to talk about some of the work that he's done. He's been a public speaker at a number of different conferences, not NHB, the International Builders Show. He's spoken at all these different places all around revenue-oriented activities and how we can drive greater revenue for our organizations. So obviously a ton of perspectives on what Hell Yes looks and feels like, and the things you can even do to help grease the wheels to make yourself a more Hell Yes with your customers. And as we know, a Hell Yes buyer is someone who's already, they understood their needs, they've prioritized action, and they're seeking the problem that you solve. Some of the challenges you have with Hell Yes buyers is trying to find them and trying to make sure that they understand how our solutions can solve the problem they're seeking to solve. But nonetheless, they're actively seeking alternatives, and generally their goals are blocked by the blocker that they're seeking to unblock. And so that's really when you get in a position where someone wants to act quickly. Folks listening, of course, you're welcome to ask questions. The engagement makes it very interesting. We hope to get some feedback from you. This is brought to you by IRCX. IRCX is AI remote telemaintenance software for the real estate industry, helping you solve problems before you roll the truck. Know before you go is what we say. So as we always start these conversations, we always look for a little bit of introduction to background. Allan, your story is incredible. And please, a little bit of your background. How did you get into this role? And then you can talk a little bit about how you got there. And then obviously, what's the problem that you're solving today? What are you passionate about?
Well, I'll give you my mom's version, just so it's kind of scripted. No, seriously, 35 years in the home building and development industry. Was the president and managing partner with Albi Homes here in Calgary for a number of years. Was lucky enough to be part of the acquisition that Brookfield made of us in 2015, which is a major change, going from being a family-run business, entrepreneurial, very focused on long-term strategy, and then being part of a large and amazing organization like Brookfield, and went over there and was part of their operations team for a number of years. And then I was really getting itchy feet. I thought that I was done, and I was ready to go on to bigger and better things. And this thing called customer experience kind of raised its head, and there was a desire by the executive at Brookfield to really get some alignment around all of North America and all of their assets in terms of delivering a great experience. So I think I was done in terms of running operations, and they bought us. Brookfield bought Albi, because of our culture, because of our leadership, and because of our focus on the customer. And I guess they felt that I could be a guy that could really create some change. So in 2018, I guess it was, I was challenged to really create an initiative that was meant to transform Brookfield Residential from being a pretty transactional business to far more relational based business, really focused on their internal teammates as well as their external customer experiences. And so we did a lot of work over a long period of time. I always had in my mind right from the get-go that I wanted to get into this new life of mine post-retirement. But this opportunity to be able to work entrepreneurial, really be a change maker, and work with some amazing people and creating a really great, some great consistency, allowed me to be able to practice some skills that I knew I was going to want in my new career. Fast forward to July of last year, I retire. I retired from the industry, had a great career. And I always had my dream was to kind of not put my feet up in golf too much, though I'm really, really excited about that part of my life as well. I moved down to Phoenix with my family. And though the lifestyle was a big part of it, it was also intentional for us to be able to be in a market that was going to provide us more opportunity for growth of our new business. And I created a leadership advisory business in August of last year, September, I guess, last year. And now what I'm doing is I'm seeking out CEOs and business leaders that want to create alignment within their organization, create change within their organization, create long-term strategy. And I'm helping them through my experience and through some tools that I've grasped onto to help solve some major problems within the business. And I'm doing that both here I'm in Calgary right now, actually, for the summer to cool down, and I'm literally cooling down. I never thought I'd have to bring my parka.
Yes.
But I'm also doing business, obviously, in the States as well. So that's what I'm up to. I'm doing some keynote speaking, as you said, as a really good BD kind of hook for me, where I can really create some networking. I'm doing some one-to-one leadership coaching as well with individuals that want to really reach that next level of potential. And I love that kind of work. My purpose right now is to give back and really create some positive influence out there.
Alignment's can be vaguely understood. Like, and I think the interesting thing to dig in a little bit here is like when alignment doesn't exist, it's a very difficult day job. It's a very difficult, leadership role, right?
Yeah.
That can creep up on you, right? All of a sudden, it's not like you're out of alignment, just like you were aligned on Monday and now you're out of alignment on Tuesday. It's not like a chiropractor. Like, when do buyers realize they've got to solve something?
Well, I feel, before you can get to alignment, you have to have, you have to have clarity. You have to have
Mhm.
real clarity of where you're going and what you stand for and what you don't stand for and how you're going to compete. And, I named my whole ClarityQuest intentionally because I really am a believer that clarity is the new clever. And whenever I try and confront a CEO or COO and have a conversation, that's where I go right away. Is I'm asking, do your frontline people have clarity of where you're going and what you stand for as an organization? And when I get an answer like, I'm not sure, or I don't know, or kind of, that's a flag for me to be able to start to really cultivate the conversation.
Mhm.
Then it comes down to alignment. And, there's a difference between a lot of people sitting around the table and nodding their head. That's kind of agreement. Sometimes it's false agreement. And then true alignment is when we walk out the boardroom door and we start to execute in a uniformed way. And in my experience, both as an executive and now as a coach, the ones where I see it really working is where that continuous clarity of where we're going and the why is front and center. And that whenever we step out of line, we have an opportunity to bring folks back in line. But I think without that, I'll call it the North Star, without that why, really difficult to get that kind of alignment.
So, like, what does that feel like from a CEO perspective, that lack of alignment?
Well, I think when you don't have, I always one of the other areas I really dig into is I go, when did you last have a really good scrap in your executive meetings?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, so now why is that it?
well, because if you're not raising conflict, you don't really have a trusting and authentic leadership team.
I agree
You
on
know,
that.
some of the work that Pat Lencioni's done around the 5 dysfunctions of a team is a model
Yep.
that I use, but I really believe that one of the keys to getting that kind of alignment is that you need to really fight it out, and you need to have a safe space, and you need to have great dialogue as a leadership group. And when you've got a lot of yes people walking around just nodding their head and then walking out to the water cooler and talking to their buddy and saying that's a bunch of bullshit,
Mhm.
I don't really believe in it, you don't have a hope in hell. So what it feels like is that I think really good CEOs that are in tune with their people, that have a good balance between the IQ side and the EQ side, they're having great conversations in their one-to-ones. They're feeling where there's that disconnect, and if they're effective, they're acting on it.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's a top down. In my experience, and what I'm trying to coach is not to create top down strategy, because the frontline people just will not, they won't absorb that if it's just being dictated to them because that's what the boss said so.
So a lot of layers to that. Like, I mean, there's the bias of the boss's decision making. There's the permission to have conflict. There's the safety of my role, my job. If I do disagree, like all those things have to be in place, and they're kind of like slow burns, boiling frog kind of scenarios. Like, and also say like when you're a CEO and you're seeking support for alignment, there's a bit of an admission that you're not doing your job that well. That kind of feels uncomfortable
As the CEO, you mean?
as a CEO, as your
But
buyer.
but again, in my humble opinion, is that the greatest CEOs are the most humble and vulnerable people.
Mhm,
When you have the power to be able to really put your ego at the door and
mhm.
ask great questions. I always say the one that asks the questions controls the conversation.
I know. I've quoted
Um,
you a number of times on that.
there's too many leaders out there that are just telling people what to do and they're not listening and
Yeah.
they're not asking questions. And I think the really great ones and the ones that I see that I want to work with are the ones that have the humility and have the vulnerability that realize they don't have all the answers. Really bright folks, really intelligent. They're there for a reason, but they acknowledge and realize that they're only as strong as their weakest link, and
Mhm.
that's when you really start to see some success.
So going through alignment, are you specifically, like, given your background in building, like, do you focusing in that space exclusively, like in the nuances of that, or just generally all leaders?
Well, I'm lucky and I'm very blessed, particularly here in Alberta, where I've got a bit of a, I think a bit of a brand and a bit of a reputation. Most of it, I
Mhm.
think, is still pretty good. It's in the home building space, and it's given me an opportunity to be able to really make some great connections and work with some great companies.
Mhm.
I would suggest to you that, I mean, in home building is a tough gig. Just with all of the nuances, 60,000 fail parts in building a home, the weather, never mind all of the economic and political baloney that's going on out there. But I'm talking about CEOs that are relational based, that want to create strategy, that want to create alignment. That's the core customer for my business.
Mhm. And those CEOs, like of 100 CEOs that are out there, how do they present themselves to you? Like, how do they show up and end up in your filter? Is it like in terms of your top of funnel, right? Or at least even what your hunch might be if it's not fully formed right now. Like, how do you figure out how to find those CEOs and how do they click on a button to get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, that's a multi-million-dollar question that I
Mm,
continue to try and solve. I mean, right now it's about networking, it's about building relationships, particularly for me down in the States where I'm kind of starting from scratch.
mhm,
I really have to do a lot of guerrilla marketing, I'll call it, in terms of really getting in front of people and finding the decision makers that want to have the conversations.
right.
Um, and there's you have to be resilient. I haven't built a new business for a lot of years. This has been really, really challenging. Up here in Canada, in Calgary, it's a little bit, I wouldn't call it easy, but easier because I have, again, I've got some really great clients. I've got some really good referrals, and I have a very broad network outside of the home building business, due to some of the work that I've been doing in the city. So, but it's just about trying to connect, and getting a hold of me is quite easy. Well, quite easy is through my website,
Mhm.
my LinkedIn profile. I mean, but it's really about having coffees and lunches and golf games and being persistent. The other thing that I really think is important that I've realized with working with clients and even working with myself is really being clear on who your core customer is. Who
Mhm.
is the customer that you want to do business with, that you can be the most profitable with, that you have the best chance to be able to create a referral from, that you can create value in their lives for? Trying to be and it's hard when the markets are tough and there's all sorts of different kind of conflict going on out there. But I think the more clear, I can be, the more clear that businesses can be on, this is our core business. We're going to have our tertiary and our secondary clients for sure. But this is the customer that we want to really do the heavy lifting in when it comes to our BD work. I think that just makes it that much easier.
Do you so then, like, those customers that you're seeking to solve for, like, how do they often understand that the problem is alignment, or how do they articulate the initial problem?
Well, a lot, and in my experience, a lot of them are pointing the finger.
Okay.
They're
Okay. So they show
point,
up to you to say, "Hey, my CRO is not doing her job. My COO is, upside
or
down."
our frontline people don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So then I ask them, okay, so talk to me about your core processes.
Okay.
Help me understand, what do they're saying they've got a problem in the field or with execution or whatever it might be. And I go, talk to me about your core processes. What does that mean? So you start having a conversation and you discover that the misalignment in terms of the consistency, whether it was from the way that they were onboarded or the way that they're evaluated in their KPIs and their personal development plans or whatever that might look like, doesn't exist. Well,
Mhm.
whose responsibility is that? That lands
Mhm.
right back on the lap of the leadership team, including the CEO and his or her team around them. So I think a lot of executives are looking outside of themselves in terms of the challenges, whereby a lot of the responsibility, same thing with talent, oh, these people, we got to get rid of them. They're like, who hired them? Who hired them? How did they get onboarded? How have they been coached and managed? Do you have one-to-ones? Oh no, we don't have time for one-to-ones. You don't have time to do the most important thing that you should be
Mhm.
doing, which is developing others. So that's been a really interesting conversation that's gone on
I
in,
bet.
the number of months that I've been doing this. And it just opens up Pandora's box.
Do you find, when you're coaching, that you extract lessons that you kind of go, "Oh my, I should have done this 3 years ago in this situation. I could have managed it this way." Does that come up to you when you're coaching somebody else?
Well, I certainly wasn't perfect. I've made more mistakes. I've made way more mistakes than, most people. So, for sure, there's lots of ahas. Like I just talked about processes, and I'm much more of a culture builder and much more of a strategic thinker and all that kind of
Mhm.
good stuff. I leave the really important details to the incredibly smart people in the room, and I always made sure I had those folks around me because that's not necessarily my strength. Uh,
Mhm.
that's one of the lessons I've learned through this journey as well, is that a lot of these entrepreneurs think that they got to solve all the problems.
Mhm.
They haven't really necessarily, you know, put the right people around them. They haven't really developed one of the first exercises I do with an executive team, whether it's a CEO, is I get them to actually create their org chart without any names on it. And then
Okay.
think about, of the people that are in your organization right now, would they fit in this seat? Would they fit on this seat? Or is there no seat for them?
Mhm.
And it is amazing the conversation that happens because, versus just plotting people's names down on an org chart, it's a different deal than looking at what does the organization need to
Mhm.
grow. And so I think those are some lessons for me as well. If I look back and think about the times that I led with my heart versus
Mhm.
thinking about, strategically what's the right thing for the business. Uh,
Mhm.
that's a really recent example I would share with you.
So when people are sitting there, when your customers, your prospects, or your market, right? Like they're seeking to solve problems, and what would they like? Just we talked earlier, like they may be expressing concern that people that at the front line don't understand what's going on, or there's lack of alignment, or they're not independent. Like when I see the problem, like maybe is this a representation of the problem? When I feel that folks aren't able to make decisions independently, then I think that I've done something wrong here because I haven't either given them the autonomy to make the decision, I haven't set expectations clearly, or with clarity, and even at a higher level, like if they don't understand the vision and how we're going to measure that vision, then it's inevitable that they're going to check swing their decisions, and that's
Right.
going to bubble up decisions, not bubble down decisions, and that's going to create more work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I learned at school, at a very old age, all about empowerment and
Mhm.
empowerment. Most companies tell people what to do. The great companies tell people what not to do, and
Mhm.
they put guardrails up. And to your point, they are clear, crystal clear
Mhm.
on their vision. They're crystal clear on their core values. They're crystal clear on how they're going to get measured, and then they
Mhm.
set a parameters around them in terms of the guidelines that they want to follow, that they don't want their team to breach, I'll call it. And then they let people fly, and they empower people to be able to make decisions, and they
Mhm.
create a culture of safety that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay that not every win is going to be, every day. And when you're doing that, to your point, as a leader, it's amazing what happens. It's a level of freedom rather than having everybody come to your door every single day and say, "What should
Mhm.
I do about this?" You got people that are flying. Sometimes you got to pull them back, but I'd rather be pulling on somebody to pull them back than pushing them to go forward. And
Yeah,
that's kind of the way I coach too.
interesting. And so, like the folks that are out there seeking a coach in this space, how do they make the decisions of what coach to choose?
Well, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of great qualified people that are in this
Yeah.
space around North America. Some do amazing jobs. Some of them been at it forever. They're career coaches. The way that I've made a decision to try to be successful is just be my authentic self,
Mhm.
and and really try to connect with people that I can use my shared experience and my journey, along with the tools that I've now put into my tool belt to be able to help them. I think it's really about that human connection. I think it's about, I know in my relationships with my clients, we're pretty close. I'm moving away from trying to be called just a coach to, I want to be the most trusted advisor that they've got.
Mhm.
They think about their lawyer, their banker, their finance people. My goal is to earn their trust and to work my tail off to be able to demonstrate that I'm adding value to the business and value to the families that own the businesses. So
Mhm.
um, I think, there's coaches out there that are very technical based. There's coaches out there that have been doing this gig for a long, long time. And then there's a lot of coaches out there that have got experience like mine, which is a seasoned CEO that's been part of both a private company as well as a large public company, and seen a lot of different ways of leading organizations, and that experience brings something special to the table.
So you're known. I'm going to say there's notoriety, but not notorious. There's no notoriety in the building world, and then you've got notoriety in talking about customer experience. And I would also like applaud you for being one of the like loudest voices in customer experience in a huge industry of home building. And so, do you find that, I mean, with the building side, well, uh, obviously understanding the mechanics of the business, it helps to connect closer with your customer. So you obviously know the mechanics of the building world, and you know the mechanics of a private business, and then also a publicly traded business, so how those are different. You spoke a lot about customer experience, and it would be hard for me not to kind of dip into this a little bit because we share a passion around customer experience.
Yeah.
And do you find that a lot of the customer experience discussions that you had in the past, those all led to this coaching conversation that you're at right now? Like, you had I'll say an outsized concern and awareness about how a consumer lived in their home,
Right.
and if we were to be really, detailed about it, the home building industry likes to think of the customer as someone who's signing a contract. They
Yeah.
don't like to think of a customer as someone who's taking possession.
No.
And that lack of alignment,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That
would have
miss.
What's that?
That miss.
That miss would have
Yeah.
had to have been a tension for you for years.
Yeah. Well, I think because at Albi, we were one of the most expensive people on the street.
Mhm.
And we were up against a lot of different great builders that were much cheaper than us that focused on the transaction.
Mhm.
We realized really early, in order for us to win and to maintain the brand equity that we built over 35 years, was that we needed to get our prospects to be thinking about the end result is what counts.
Mhm.
It was a saying that we had at Albi. It's the end result is what counts. So we literally tried in all of our efforts to try and get our prospects and our customers to start, rather than thinking about signing the contract and how they're going to feel today, get them to think about how they're going to live in their home, and get them to
Mhm.
think about, the memories and the experiences and the security that they're desiring for their families, 10 months down the road, and
Mhm.
getting their mindset shift to looking at that experience was incredibly important for us, because we were not going to compete on price up front. So the other part of it that I think, that I've talked to you a little bit about this before, is that our industry is notorious of, it's the last day of our life with the customer and the first day of the rest of the life for the customer.
Yeah.
And
On 25-year payment terms.
and where are we? We're long gone in our truck saying, "See you later." Well, we truly believe that we need to look at our customers as assets. And it's when they're actually living in their home when they can become the most valuable to us, as not only as customers and part of the family of the business, but they can become tremendous allies for you in growing your business, increasing the lifetime value of that client by investing in them.
Mhm.
And our industry is notorious for forgetting about that customer, leaving that and calling it warranty, versus looking at it as a real investment into, hey, these are our future customers. They're our future marketing arms. These are people that we can continue to invest in, and increase their value of their lives while they increase the value of what they provide to us.
Mhm.
But that was a journey, and I really believe that, I will only deal with relational based businesses.
Mhm.
I will not deal with a transactional business. I've already said that, and I've disqualified
Interesting.
people.
Well,
But
what's interesting about what you're talking about from a alignment perspective, and for those that are maybe new to the conversation, and I think the data is somewhat the same, is that a home typically has 200,000 steps to build. And if you get 199 and 990 of them right, there's still 10 things that are wrong. And those
right,
10 things are what you're remembered by. And homeowners are generally forgiving for the things that went wrong if they're treated like human beings,
right,
right? Do you think that, and of course, for other context for everyone listening, is that building a home typically takes around 18 to 22 trades to build. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of alignment that
yeah,
needs to occur.
yeah,
And so when you think about your experience, do you have, I mean, there's obviously mutual experience in just employees, but you would have had to get vendors aligned as well in order to deliver that end result that counts.
yeah.
How did that's a unique differentiator for you versus the other coaches that are out there. Because I can control the people that I can hire and fire, but vendors are a different story. So how do you bundle that into The vision statement.
Yeah, that's not an easy one. I mean, right now, I mean, to be really honest with you, at least in my coaching experience right now, it's really about getting the internal teams aligned,
Okay.
realizing, and this is now, I can kind of transition a little bit, but realizing how critical our partners are. Uh,
Hmm.
and I know for a fact that in this market right now, which is very volatile on both sides of the border, at least in the housing market, and this isn't just about the housing market, but the trades are starting to get really drilled down in on terms of costs.
Hmm.
I really believe that there's a really fine balance on if you're truly partners, you've got to be able to win and lose together.
Hmm.
And in order for you to be able to create, particularly if you want to create a great experience, you don't want to only have the trades that you want the trades that want you and that are prepared to go to the well for you. So, but we did a lot of work around alignment with our trade partners over the years, and anytime that you've got a third party that's really doing all the heavy lifting, you've got to be able to connect with them and again demonstrate the why to them.
So in that kind of like spoke of those that are influential in delivering that end result that counts, do you find that not only are we talking about customer experience as a discipline or as something to work on, but there's also the supplier experience or partner experience? Like, did you guys ever think about it that way?
For sure. I mean, I mean, like I just said, I think we did 360s on had our trades evaluate us. Uh,
Hmm.
as well as us evaluating them. And that kind of an intention demonstrated to our partners that this was a partnership. I mean, and it wasn't perfect all the time, but that was
Hmm.
certainly just one way for us to be able to demonstrate that we needed to be accountable and make it easy for them as well.
I don't know if that's all that common.
Well, I think particularly, well, again, depending on if you, if we can if we want to talk about strictly on the home building side, I don't, great companies have got great partnerships and
Hmm.
they are long serving and and yes, the financial end of things comes into play. But there's a tremendous amount of transparency about where you're going as an organization, what role everybody plays. There's lots of great communication. I know a tremendous amount of builders on both sides of the border and developers that are doing this incredibly well. And then there's the other ones that are very focused on strictly operational efficiency, and that's okay because they're massive, and that's how
Yeah.
they grow. So it depends on who
There's a
you.
business for that.
There's a business for that. So
Right.
it really depends on what your core competencies are.
Right. And more so kind of thinking about like who are the stakeholders in alignment, right? So like if we're talking about seeking alignment within an organization, it's not just the org chart that's it's not just people you're paying, your W-2s, your T4s. It
No.
also includes your 1099s and your H2s and your subcontractors. And because that overall organization, the broader organization, is the one that helps you deliver that end result. And
Yeah.
so it's a often we talk about, I mean, in conventional businesses that don't employ a large degree of third parties, which is like, whatever, think of a manufacturing center or whatever, those don't necessarily have the same problems. But in real estate, broadly, like, I mean, this is in property management, this is in construction, this is in development. The relationship with your third parties is you may have more third parties than you have employees.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. And like I said, we don't build anything anymore. You
Right.
know, we don't
Yeah.
build anything anymore. We're the front man. And if we haven't got if we're not, you know, the same rules for delivering a great customer experience apply to delivering a great trade experience. And I think this is one of the things that a lot of people don't think about enough. So you think about customer experience, and we've talked about this before, that quadrant of of caring, of quality, and most importantly, of authenticity and ease.
Hmm.
Those four things, based on research, really drive great client experience. Well, you think of those four things from a trade perspective, you need to be authentic and transparent. You need to be easy to do business with. You got to give them quality plans and prints and scopes of work, and we have to care for one another. It doesn't change, unless you just want to be a commodity. If you just want to be a commodity and be at the table every 6 months, tendering everything out on a regular basis, that's a different story. But if you want to really secure long-term relationships that deliver amazing experiences and product, then I think it's a bit of a different story.
Well, I think what you brought up too as well is that it's understanding how you compete in the market, right? So there's like this notion, the three different ways, or three different axes of competition, and it's like I can compete on operational efficiency. That's what you just described. I can compete on innovation. And in the real estate world, innovation could be a pricing model. It could be a unique product. Like maybe if it could be it's like compete on innovation, compete on product. Like it could be I compete if you've got the homes in Malibu that are on the hillside, you don't need to compete on service or price.
Right.
You've got the product
Right.
that people are going to pay for because it's unique.
Yeah.
And then you compete on service, right? And competing on service is it's proven to be a little bit more lasting with respect to you can infinitely create service experiences. There's limited product opportunities and there's limited price can only go down.
It's not competing so much on service, because service, remember, is what we do. We're competing on experience.
On experience, right?
Experience. And experience is the one that doubles down. So you may make a couple $100,000 on a sale, but if you want to double down on that and make that a couple $100,000 into $400,000, delivering on that great experience is the only way to do that.
And so in order to do, and so this is where I think is just to unpack this a little bit. In order to compete on experience, like you mentioned, and I think we can can you lump relationship into competing experience? Yeah. So then in order to do that, you can only be aligned.
Yeah.
If you are not aligned, then the experience, which to some people sounds like it's like vague, but it's actually not. It's actually pretty deliberate and intentional. But it's like that requires a bit of work to create that alignment. And so I just, in terms of the audience here, hell yes, right? The hell yes customer your hell yes customer seeks to compete on experience. So they've got I'll say a relatively undifferentiated, and why you would compete on experience is because you've got a relatively undifferentiated product. And I mean, like if you have the house on the bluffs in Malibu, that is a differentiated product. If you own Miami Beach frontage, that is a differentiated product, but everywhere else is relatively undifferentiated.
Yeah.
And then if you've got relative lack of pricing and pricing power and control, which most industries don't, then you are lumped into competing on experience, unless you can niche that down in such a way that you can compete on the other two angles.
Right.
So to add clarity, the hell yes buyer is one that wants to compete on experience because they cannot compete, like they're excluded from competing on the other two. And since they're competing on experience, they have to have alignment. Otherwise, they're trading dollars for dimes.
Yeah. But I think, you're talking about some unique locations in real estate. We all know that location is still a primary factor. And you're talking about some pretty unique opportunities. But when you're talking about traditional master plan communities, where there's not a lot of differentiation in terms of location, we might have some more amenities than others and all that kind of good stuff. These builders and developers still need to make a choice. Are we going to be and be the best in the world at? Are they going to be the best in the world at operational efficiency? Are they going to be the best in the world at product leadership and innovation? Or are they going to be the best in the world at customer centricity? You need to pick. You got to be good at all of them. But you want to be, in order for you to be able to really create a differentiation for yourself, you want to be the best in the world at something. And the world is your segment, is the sandbox that you're working in.
Completely agree.
That makes sense?
Oh yeah. And so as you mentioned earlier, your hell yes buyer is going to filter on relationship or experience. And so they want to compete on that way because they recognize they may or may not, for one reason or another, be able to really win in the other two places, right? Or they can't, maybe even better, they can't repeatedly win in the other two places, right? But they can repeatedly win in experience. And so like for your business and, just to kind of take your experience and port that over to other industries, like other industries that are seeking to compete on experience, they're faced with, and then have that complex supply environment of vendors and employees and maybe a lot of moving parts. they're going to find a unique attraction to what you have to offer, because the caring, quality, authenticity, and ease part may not be things that they really care too much about, because it doesn't bubble up in terms of a competitive advantage for their organization.
I do some really cool. I've done 3 of them in the last week. I did a workshop on competitive landscape,
Mhm.
and you look at the top 5 to 7 buying attributes, and you look at your competition, and you figure out what are the buying attributes, and most people will, if you take our industry, it's features and benefits, location, all that kind of good stuff.
Mhm.
What they're not thinking about is time. What they're not
Mhm.
thinking about is transparency, and
Mhm.
nobody is competing in those spaces. So my point when we do these competitive landscapes and we think about, that old saying of the blue ocean strategy,
Mhm.
where can we really stand out? If we can be the one that is the most authentic in our approach with our consumers, and if we can make it as easy as possible for customers to do business with us, we have
Mhm.
an opportunity to, stand out, charge a premium, create a differentiation, and create a landscape that's very unique. But most people aren't thinking, because the other fact is, and this is a fact, that emotional drivers are have a far more higher ROI than the more practical drivers. So
Mhm.
when you deal with something that is from an emotional perspective with your client, and I don't care what business you're in, I don't care
Oh.
if you're selling widgets. Like, if you can really connect the emotional drivers and solve the problem that the customer has from an emotional perspective, you are going to have that much more of an opportunity to be able to win.
Mhm.
Yes.
And do you find that, like, those elements of connecting the emotional drivers, again, now kind of double clicking a little bit further, it's kind of easy to be to understand the practical drivers of it. I mean, it may
Yeah.
be complex, but it's easier than attaching your alignment to the emotional drivers of the decision making.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what drives that your point around the end result is what counts.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when you look at the client journey, and again, I don't care what industry you're in, you look at the client journey, you don't look at the client journey from the inside out.
Yeah.
You look at
Well,
the client journey from the outside in. And you
but we're shocked at how many organizations are
oh,
they're organized by supply, not by demand.
well, and I mean, it's their processes, because this process works for this company, but they're not thinking about the impact that it's having on their end customer,
Right.
you know? So again, I feel that the ones that there's a balance. You can't be the tail can't be wagging the dog. But you got to have a balance, but you need to be looking at what are those emotional at the different points of the journey, whether
Mhm.
it's in home building or whether it's in, property management or whatever it might be. In each part of that journey, what are these people feeling and experiencing, and where are those gaps? Um,
You
it's
know
it's a
where I appreciate you bringing that up, and it's interesting where you start seeing understanding around that emotional driver. I'm going to share an example that is maybe shocking to many people. I have had incredible experiences for the last 3 years, repeatedly. I'm going to shock people. Repeatedly, I've had repeatable, shockingly incredible emotional experiences with the Canadian version of the IRS for the last 3 years. And it is blows my mind at the quality of care that they have delivered for, I'm not that as a business owner and a founder, you end up talking to the government a lot and about all sorts of stuff. But I cannot believe the degree at which we have been collaborators and partners in seeking to resolve gaps of information or timing issues or transparency issues. And it has been so incredible to see, and then to match that with a consumer-based organization that have been an absolute train wreck. I get so frustrated when I've seen the standard being set at a government revenue-based organization versus, and even the technology, the people. Like, when you talk about alignment, I am shocked at the end-to-end alignment at the Canadian version of the IRS and their delivery of services relative to what I've seen by other consumer businesses. And I'm just, and I could go on forever, and I refuse to because it gets me too inflamed and wastes too much time. But it's like, they're not even, as an organization, that nobody there gets fired for messing up because that's who they are. But they are all aligned and they are drumming the drum, and it is remarkable. It is something I keep on experiencing it over and over again, and I can't believe it. Even going through like minor audits and stuff like that, they're sending me updates before I have a chance to ask. It's incredible.
I better be careful, because you should try the U.S. version of the IRS and see the exact opposite.
I have yet to. I know that there's less of them.
You don't want to, but that's another story for another time. No,
it's shocking that if you can make that, and that you can, no matter what the business is, you can make that commitment. You can get the alignment, and you can get the results that you seek to achieve.
Yeah.
And it's going to be cheaper, better, faster for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it has to be, again, as we talked about earlier, you need to be having aligned focus on this, and it's got to be a priority. And in organizations,
well, and I think that what you've also serviced is, so we talked about lack of alignment impacting performance, right? Because and it's not hitting your goals, it's waste, it's frustration, it's working on Sunday, it's all those kind of things. You talked about, in terms of your Helios buyer, you talked about environments that have multiple stakeholders at play to deliver that final product. You talked about an awareness of the emotional alignment versus just the practical alignment to achieve that objective. And here could be an example, right? You're picking out 2x4s to make a wall, right? Well, it may be practical to allow for a 2x4 with a bit of a bow in there into that wall and put it up on the frame, because someone's going to drywall over it, and then someone's going to tape it, and then someone's going to paint it, and someone's going to do all this stuff to it. But you don't realize that the end customer 3 years from now is going to lean, or a year from now is going to lean up against the wall, and that wall is going to bow in and out because that 2x4 is bowing the wrong direction. And the wall is going to poke out a little bit when the lights go down. And that alignment at the person who is, often in the lower end of the pay scale in terms of framers, having that alignment of what is acceptable on the end to end, and what that means to that end consumer is difficult and worth seeking resolution for, because it can create those problems.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, you get what you tolerate. You get what you tolerate. And, if you haven't got standards, and if those standards aren't being checked by your people, I mean, it's really hard when you're talking about our business, when you've got 150 different trades that are working on a job site, to have everybody show up in the right frame of mind. That's a really tough gig. That's tough enough. However, if we haven't got the right superintendents doing the right inspections at the right time and saying this is not up to standard because this is who we are, then you're going to continue to have those kinds of problems. So it starts off with really being clear on who you are and who you're not, and sticking to the standards.
Do you find that a lot of your customers that you talk to, they're at a loss as to the impact of the lack of alignment in terms of like the whole value chain? Like they don't really even think about their supplier partners, or maybe they don't even think about the end customer after it's all said and done?
No, I don't think so. Because I think, rightly or wrongly, I'm picking clients that get it, that want to get better, that want to build a reputable, continue to build a reputable business that's sustainable. And there's a lot of ahas during this journey that we're on, whether it's around, starting with our strategy, to looking at our processes, to looking at our systems. Then you start looking at your talent, and you go, okay, have we got the right seats in the bus, and we got the right people in those seats? I mean, those kinds of conversations are really sticky. because they haven't necessarily thought that way before. And those are great conversations.
So when you're talking to people and you're filtering who to serve, and it's kind of bubbling through to the decision making, I mean, now I suppose that you could kind of, given where you're at right now with Clarity, and then again in your experience prior, like what kind of objections do you typically hear? Like when do people say not? I mean, you might not get a no very often because your relationship. You probably get a lot of no.
I get way more no's than yeses.
Well, that's good.
I get way more no's than yeses, and it's a really interesting gig. But particularly right now, and I'm writing an article on this because of just the way the economy is, the affordability, the unknown, all the noise that's going on there due to the political environment. There's a lot of organizations that are really pulling back, and they're pulling back, in my humble opinion, not just because I'm a coach, but they're pulling back on things that might look like subjective spending. Who wants to invest in a leadership advisor when we're going through a war? Well, the way I overcome that is there's never been a time before where you need to be thinking about, do you have alignment? There's never been a time before. Do you have the right people on your leadership team? Are you aligned? Are you talking to one another? Do you have the right talent? Are you looking at, your strategy, and do you know the difference between strategy and execution? So the big obstacle right now primarily is, do we want to invest in this nice to have in a marketplace where it's a guerrilla warfare in some cases? So that's the primary objection that I get. Or the other one is, we're just not ready. We're not ready to get there yet. And, there's some real validity to that, because you have to be, in order to make this kind of work, this kind of work, you have to be prepared to be vulnerable. You have to be prepared to open up the kimono. And not all organizations and all leaders are there yet. So it's but for sure a whole lot more no's than yeses.
What do you take away from those objections? Like, how do you take that as intelligence into who to target?
That's a great question. I think I continue just to look for leaders that I meet and connect with that have a really great, a heart and a really great mind. I don't, I'm not going to shy away from people that are in the same kind of boat, because that leader may have a different decision and a different perspective. But I just try and take those lessons and try and continue to overcome the objections that are out there. I mean, you just have to continue to be resilient. And I also, the one thing I am doing a lot of right now is I leverage the clients that I've got. I am getting, my NPS score is through the roof. I'm really proud of that. My referrals are through the roof. I'm really proud of that. I leverage this with other CEOs so they know it's not just this Klassen guy that's coming up and talking the game. I want them to see what other people are saying. And though it's only been, 9 months of the journey, I've been very blessed to be able to have a pretty good record. So I try and use that as my, hey, this is valuable, or, and that's the way that I try and overcome some of those objections.
You look back at your time, your career in this business, your previous businesses, or even when you were first starting out, like what's given the things you learned, what's the one thing you advice you'd give yourself or give someone who's just joining an organization about trying to find that hell yes customer?
Well, and I speak on this one, and I still, and it's really around intentional living. And what I mean by this, G, is that I truly believe in order for you to be able to be resilient, you have to be able to take care of yourself.
Oh,
And
wow, okay.
if you're not looking after yourself, putting that oxygen mask on you first, as others have said, and being, living a healthy life, being prepared, know your audience. It's a tough gig. The BD gig is a tough gig. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to be looking after yourself, number one, and making sure things in your personal life are looked after, because those glass balls, as I've written about, can break.
Mhm.
Those are the ones that are really important. You need to be sure the glass balls are looked after. And that will give you strength, in my experience, to be able to deal with the day-to-day business out there.
Yeah.
It's just this the way that it's the way I coach. It's what I believe in, and I think it's a difference maker.
Wow. And incidentally, actually, it would be great if we get that article on the glass balls. I really do like how you frame that one. We'll put that in the show comments so that people can get to that, because it's worth reading, especially as we're
Yeah.
kind of heading. If you've got some summer reading to do, it's not that long. It's about a 3 or 4 minute read, but it really helps put things in perspective.
Well, I get more like when I talk to CEO groups, and I do that a lot. I talk to CEO forum groups and CEO groups. This is the topic they want to talk about.
Mhm.
Because they know that they got it all out of balance. And
Mhm.
I always talk about with every leader that I talk to, there's no such thing as balance in life. There is only intentional living around priorities. Uh,
Mhm.
and sometimes balance is whacked to work, and sometimes balance is whacked to family. But you need to know what's your priorities. And it's the way I do my leadership one-to-one coaching as well, is really making sure that these leaders have really got a great foundation, because they can't fix the things that are the glass balls that break.
Yeah.
Um, and when they've got their arms wrapped around that and they got that figured out, they can do anything.
Right. And just don't go to Coldplay concerts with your
Well, yeah,
head of
exactly. You don't need any memes written about you.
No, you don't. This has been a wonderful conversation, Alan. I mean, I just think the end result that counts is a really interesting perspective that forces you to focus on the customer, and that if you don't have that as a radar, you just cannot get that alignment. And so I think I really appreciate you mentioning that. In addition to the caring, quality, authenticity, and ease, kind of like inputs into achieving that end result.
Yeah.
That's super helpful. And again, I think that the intentional living and resilience and taking care of yourself, and so giving yourself permission to be selfish about your own well-being, right?
Yeah, for sure. You got to come number one.
Right.
If you're out there selling something, or you're out there leading somebody, if you're not looking after yourself first, you're useless to the real important people in your life, and you're useless to your business.
It's you're running on tires with no treads.
Yeah.
It's very inefficient. Who should we talk to next?
I wrote down, I'm not sure if you've talked to the guys from Sicilian, uh,
No.
but John Sicilian and Phil Worland, two amazing tech gurus, entrepreneurs. Sicilian Partners are an organization that have created some really cool technology and data capture tools in the development industry in the United States. I've
Yeah.
had the privilege of being able to be at a couple of their Innovative 50 conferences in Dallas, Texas. And John and Phil are two really cool dudes that I think would be really, really worthwhile to
All
have a
right.
conversation.
That sounds outstanding.
If you need
Very
an
cool.
intro, if you need an intro, I'll be more than happy to do that.
That'd be helpful. I'll forward you an email and you can flip it over to them. That'd be great.
Cool.
Wonderful. So for everyone looking to connect with Alan, LinkedIn's probably the easiest click for you from the show here. Just click on the link. You can connect with him. Have any comments?
Website, allanklassen.com. Pretty simple. So
An ALLAN,
you got it.
right? And KLL.
No, KLASSEN.
ASSN, right? Two S's. Got it. Yeah, check that out, and certainly you do create some wonderful content on the daily, or is it every other day? I can't remember, but with respect to kind of getting our acting gear and and being mobilized to be inspired. So you've been doing that for years and years and years, and it's been wonderful to follow. Thanks everyone who's listening on the podcast. Hit subscribe, it makes it easier for other people to find it. Add any comments and click the download button. That's always helpful. If you're following us both on LinkedIn, we'd appreciate that. That's always good. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to both of us. And then of course you get invited to future shows and they'll show up in your feed. So it's really easy. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. That's always a wonderful way to kind of continuously get stuff out of the feed. Allan, this has been an outstanding conversation. I've always enjoyed our chats.
Yeah.
I do appreciate what you've brought to the world.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm honored and appreciate you, and I'm very proud of you.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening today. If you're catching this in the live feed, we'll have a blog coming out later on. We'll have some more stuff so you can kind of engage, but it's always out here on LinkedIn. Thanks, Allan. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care and have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.